Thank you so much, Dave. I want to request that we make some room for the men to join us now because we shall be projecting one or two things on the screen. I think there are quite a number of seats there. The men can take, and if there's an empty seat beside you, you can just move, squeeze a bit so that our men get... And I think we can clap them once more as they sit down. You know, Dave said we just sang a stanza and a chorus for those songs that our men have composed. And then he said, we are going to have a day. We are going to have a day. We are not announcing it now, but a day that we believe once we go through, we shall never be the same again. We shall never be the same again. We shall be telling you more about that day as time goes by, but it is on this side of this year. Now, I was not punishing Dave by reading all those names, so-and-so, Meshuram, the next section, someone, all those names. It's because today brings us to the end of our celebration month. You remember this month we started on May, our dinner was May when? 31st. We started on May 31st with a celebration dinner, and then we got into a whole month of celebration. You remember our children led us here. You remember our ladies. You remember our youth last Sunday and our Father's Day. All these have been celebration for our 2 years anniversary since NBC Westland started. And today we bring it to an end by, first of all, listening to our wonderful men, having composed those songs. We are at the climax of our second anniversary. But also, as we look at how do you break limits? By breaking to pieces. Today we want to learn how we can break the limits by breaking to pieces. And as I was preparing this, I was remembering a time we traveled with my wife and our daughter, and we landed in this small island called Vanuatu at night. And our host picked us. And when they picked us, they were not to host us in their homes. They had rented a house for us where we were to cook for ourselves and take care of our expenses. And, you know, it's a very small city, Nandi. And so we drove for about 20 minutes and we ended up in this big field. It looked like a football field, if I remember well, with a one house, one unit in the middle, no fence, nothing. We entered and they told us this will be your house for the next 1 or so weeks. We have done shopping for you if you want to make dinner. Tomorrow's breakfast is there. Then from tomorrow, you'll be taking care of your meals. Now, that night, we didn't sleep. Because there was no wall around that house. The doors did not have a grill. The windows did not have grills. And the time we left Nairobi, around that time, the level of insecurity in Nairobi was very, very high. In fact, 3 Nairobi Baptist Church teams, if you remember, had been attacked. You know, the men's ministry had been attacked in Pastor Nganga's house. Our choir had been attacked in Muto Mahiaini's house. And the Bible study I used to lead had been attacked in Valley Arcade. Those of you who were in Gong Road that time, it was around that time. And we couldn't sleep. And then the following day, I asked these people, how could you be this insensitive? How could you put my family in a house, no wall, no grills, nothing? And they told me, here there are no thieves. There's no way you can ever be attacked here. We live in a country where there are no thieves. But we cannot overestimate the purpose of a war, especially in Nairobi. In Nairobi, we can never overestimate the purpose of a war. And today we want to look at Nehemiah repairing the wall of Jerusalem, which he repaired in a record 52 days, as our drama team dramatized to us this morning. Now, when David took over Jerusalem from the Jebusite, it was only a land of about 12 acres. And then his son expanded Jerusalem to reach about 32 acres so that he could build the temple. The one man who really expanded the city of Jerusalem and built the wall that Nehemiah was to later on repair was none other than Hezekiah, who expanded Jerusalem to take care of increasing population to about 135 acres. And when he was threatened by the Assyrians in around 700 BC, that's the time that he actually built the wall. Now, when we hear of a wall, we may think this wall was like the walls we have around our homes, with the width of a normal building block of about maybe 6 inches. I don't know, Mr. Simu, our usual building blocks, maybe 6 or 8. If it is 9, it must be a very big, I think the 9 by 9 is for foundation, isn't it? Yes. Okay. So our walls are around maybe 6 to 8 inches in width. The walls that these people used to build, and especially this particular one we are talking about, was actually 5 meters. 5 meters. That's why they would build watchtowers. And this one had quite a number of watchtowers on top. Houses for watchmen on top of the wall, because it was about 5 meters. The length of this wall was about 4 kilometers, just slightly more than 4 kilometers. And the height, remember, this was the most important defensive tool these communities used to have, such that once you locked yourself inside a city with a wall, there's no way the enemy would have penetrated that wall. Unless now they laid siege, and that's why they would lay siege. You remember when Jerusalem fell, much later, they had to lay siege for about almost 3 years. And these people were so hungry because they could not get out or get in. But there was no way the enemy could penetrate this kind of wall. So the height was about 12 meters. 12 meters by 5 by 4 kilometers, if that is proper English. Now, where we are going? We are going to be putting up a wall, which is going to cost us. And I was trying to calculate, given the cost that Mr. Simu has given us of this wall, I was trying to calculate how much would Nehemiah have needed to build this wall. The figures I got were out of this world. It was for more than 1 billion, the original wall. But assuming it was just repairs, maybe I assumed maybe a tenth. So Nehemiah needed about maybe 100 million. Current figures, if the wall was of this quality, and I'm very sure it was of that quality. But now, how do you raise such an amount of money within a very short time? The wall was built within 52 days. And within 52 days. And in the interest of time, and today I indulge your time a bit. In the interest of time, I want to suggest 3 things. I would have suggested 4, but let me just suggest 3. That 1, this wall was completed in prayer. Because of prayer. This wall was completed because of prayer. Number 2 is that this wall was completed because it was broken to pieces. It was actually completed in pieces. And number 3 was that this wall was completed in diversity. And because of the diverse nature of the people who built this wall. So very quickly, these 3 points that we are going to be talking about. Now, the book of Nehemiah, of all the books in the Bible, the book of Nehemiah is the only book where prayer or faith and works are taken equally. It is the only book where, when it came to prayer, they prayed as if everything depended on prayer. But when it came to work, they worked as if everything depended on themselves, on human effort. When it came to defending themselves, they prayed as if they didn't need anything else apart from prayer as far as defending themselves from the enemies was concerned. But they also armed themselves with the swords, with the weapons, such that they are building with a shovel on one hand and a sword on the other hand. But they were still praying and trusting God. Faith and hard work. Faith and hard work intertwined so well. When Jeremiah received the news, as it was read here for us, that the wall is broken down and the gates have been burnt by fire, we learned that it was in the month of Kislev in chapter 1. And when he presented his case before the king, it was in the month of Nisan. Now, the month of Kislev corresponds with November, December of our calendar. And the month of Nisan corresponds with March, April, which means he actually prayed for about 3 months. But in the book, he says, then I sat down, prayed, fasted, mourned, wept for some days. You can think that he prayed for 3 days. Because for him, he was such a prayerful person. Praying for 3 months, he was saying he fasted and prayed and wept for some days. But it was actually for over 3 months that Nehemiah prayed before he approached the king. And you know, when he approached the king, and the king asked him, why are you downcast? Why are you like this? And you know, Nehemiah was a cupbearer in a foreign land. He was not supposed to go to the king when he is looking sad, when he is looking haggard. He was supposed to be looking well. You know the people who relate with the kings, even in this land, they don't go to the king when your clothes are not well ironed or your face is not properly, what is it, manicured? Not manicured. What? You need to do proper facial, isn't it? Before you go to Weru. But that's the way it was, even in these days. But here, Nehemiah goes looking sad, looking haggard, looking as if he is hungry, looking as if he is sad, and the king is concerned, and he confronts him. Why are you looking like this? You're not supposed to look like this when you come before the king. And Nehemiah, the Bible tells us, he prayed before responding to the king. It's a book that we can learn a lot about prayer. We don't have time to go into much details about prayer in this book. But if you ever needed to learn the role of prayer and the role of hard work intertwined together, dovetailed so well, study the book of Nehemiah. It was reminding me, actually, that when we started as NBC Westerns, about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years, when we started meeting in our homes to mobilize ourselves and to plan, we started this church in prayer. I don't know whether you remember days that you'd meet and pray for God to give us not even a venue of our own, just a place that we could rent. And we walked the breadth and length of Westerns, and in most places we were told no. We went to several schools, we went to several halls, we went, and we were rejected in many, and we prayed until we got this place. I don't know that you remember days we would pray for a venue now of our own, permanent place. And again, we walked the length and breadth of this place. I remember there's one Christmas, Mr. Mange and his wife and myself, we didn't go for Christmas. We were just driving around this area, just looking for venues that we could lease. And the rest of you are praying. And we prayed and prayed. And finally, we got to Gesha. And in Gesha, we were told it is 230 million shillings. And it was, no, that one is, in fact, the very first time I was told that, I said, no, that one you cannot even present. Not even the leadership in the headquarters. The leadership here. but on and on until Gesha now is ours. I know that you remember days you would pray last year beginning for our worship team, for instrumentalists, for what haven't we prayed about in this place? But I want to urge you one thing. I want to urge us to do one thing. I want to urge us to pray more. Because we have not yet reached. Nehemiah prayed until the wall was done, until the last gate was in place. I want to encourage us to pray more. I want to encourage us. I know many of you maybe do not know that we usually have a pre-service prayer. Let's come early. Because we still have a project before us. We have never finished paying that land. The land is ours, but we have never finished paying. And even before we have finished paying, we want actually to build a beautiful sanctuary that Mr. Simu has showed us here before. So the journey is still long before us. And we need to increase our prayer. We need to increase coming together to pray together. We need to come to Gesha Road, to that beautiful land that we bought. There's a beautiful house there. We need to be there on Thursdays at 4. Let's pray together. Let's tell God, how can you build that house without we can't. We need to pray. That is just that building is just in Mr. Simu's mind and the papers. It's only Mr. Sim who can actually describe to you where are the doors, where are the inner rooms. It's a building of faith. But we need to pray and work hard so that that building can one day, for sure, it will stand complete. But he also completed his wall in pieces. Nehemiah needed tens of millions of shillings to build the wall. He worked like a master QS when he broke down that wall into manageable pieces or sections, because remember, it's 4 kilometers. The height is very high. The width is about 5 meters. And people need to build. And these are people, by the way, who had just recently come back from captivity. They were not settled people. They are people who sometimes would even abandon when they're building the temple. They would abandon building the temple and go now to start building their own houses because they had just come from captivity. They are people who really needed a lot of encouragement. They are people who needed a lot of resources. And when you count the number of sections that Dave read to us, you will count more than 50. This wall was divided to more than 50 sections, more than 50 portions. So if they were to build, if each team that was mentioned there was to build an equal portion, it would have been at least 80 meters, each portion of 80 meters. Now, when you talk of 80 meters from 4 kilometers, it sounds a bit doable, isn't it? Sounds a bit doable. I think the length of this compound could be more than 80 kilometers. So 80 kilometers sounded a bit doable to these people. 80 meters. 80 meters, yes. So good to preach when your wife is looking at you. You can't make a mistake. Thank you. I did see, as a church, we are in the process of raising 25 million shillings to build our sanctuary. Given our numbers, I think that's like the community in Jerusalem at that time, being expected to raise tens of millions to repair the wall. But we need to clap ourselves because we have already raised 2 million shillings. Within a very short time, we have been able to raise. We had a dinner here, and quite a number of you are there that raised over 1 million. And you know what? Somebody even last Sunday gave 5,000 shillings for that dinner. People are still paying for that dinner. Can you imagine? God's grace. God's grace, which will take us to the very end. And when you look at that sanctuary, what a beautiful piece of work that Mr. Simu has done. But now, This building of ours has been broken down for us by a QS that Mr. Simu contacted, a friend of Mr. Simu. And we have broken it to pieces. Pieces such that there's a piece that is not even 500 shillings in that building. Can you imagine? When you read about the war of Nehemiah, they were fixing even boats. They are mentioned, just a boat, to tie the door. It is mentioned in that chapter that Dave read for us. Even the hinges, they are mentioned there. The doors, they are mentioned there. Etc., etc. And for this beautiful building that Mr. Simu has drawn for us very, very graciously, it has been broken to very small units. Very small units. I would agree of only 400 shillings. Now, when you're building this kind of a building, and you hear, I can buy a widow degree of 400 shillings, and I will have built. Even when you give 200 shillings to a building, later on you tell people, I built that house I built. I remember when I go church, we built our church. When I was growing up, we didn't have a church, a PCA church nearby. We used to go a bit far, about 3 kilometers away, which was far in the standards of rural, where you are walking. And I remember when I was in class 7, 6, that's the time we were building our church in the village. And of course, I didn't have money. I don't know where the money was coming from, but at least I know I volunteered several days. There's one for Koroga, Foundation. And I remember a day that we went to help the carpenter to put the trusses, just to lift. Now, when I'm in charge with my children, I tell them, that church I built. I built that church. I'm the one who built that church. My grandmother used to tell me, I built Tumutumu Hospital. I built. You could think that she built alone. I built Tumutumu Hospital. It's a big hospital. And it's because she contributed. The missionaries would have them go to the rivers and carry the sand, carry the building blocks, carry the timber from the Tumutumu forest. And because you did that, I built. I am the one who built. And moving forward, I do think that we need to take these small portions that this building of ours has been broken into according to our ability. Because in this war, as we are going to see in the next point, people build according to their abilities. We have tried actually to put those papers you see behind. It's the same. It's the BQs. You can just walk around, and even in the restaurant, you will see our BQs. We have even been told how many cements we are going to need for this building. In Kikuyu, they are building toilets because they felt a dire need for toilets. And then what they are doing, they are not even bringing the money to the church. They are literally walking to the hardware, buy 2 bags of cement, and bring. But we cannot do here that because we have not yet started building. But you can literally buy 2 bags of cement. We have been told it is 600 shillings a bag. So the building has been broken to very manageable portions. And I do thank God for this far that He has brought us. We have already raised more than 2 million shillings, which means we need less than 23 million shillings now to complete our building. And moving on, Nehemiah utilized or made use of the diversity of the people in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem. And that's why I really wanted Dave to read that chapter. And I would like you, when you go back home, to read that chapter. I know sometimes in the Bible, when you're just reading names, most of us, those chapters, I know we just skip. I know there are not many of you who have read Nehemiah chapter 3, because it just says, so and so built from this section to this section. and so built from this section to this section. But let me tell you something about those names that you read there. When you read verse 1, it starts by telling us Eliashib, the high priest. Now, Eliashib is put there very purposefully. Eliashib is the high priest. Sometimes people think that buildings are not spiritual. And what Nehemiah wants us to learn is that the building of this wall is as spiritual as the coffee run that we had in Lower Kabete on Friday. And many students, by the way, came to know the Lord. Let's clap for those people who went. You know, Mr. Ngati yesterday told me he led 10 students to the Lord. Kimenyi's group led 6 students to the Lord. Koidekeni told me they went to a place where students were playing pool table and all of them got saved. You know, it was just amazing. It was amazing being in Lower Kabete on Friday. But my group was given, let me not use but, my group, where we were told to stand because we were apportioned places to stand by the students, I stood outside the pub. So the students I was evangelizing to, you know, they would tell me, you want to serve me coffee, I'm going to vomit here. You don't laugh me if you are telling me to take coffee. So anyway, Eliashib, the high priest, this is a spiritual affair. This is a spiritual affair. He was the first, together with his fellow priests. And I want to assure you, I'm on the forefront of this. When it came to inviting people for dinner, we invited with my wife. When it came to the, what are they calling it, garage sale, whatever you could put there, we put. And we'll continue. Because it's a spiritual thing. You know, many times, when I sit in my office on 4th floor in Gong Road, I was not in Baptist when those of you who are in Baptist were building that building. I came when you were buying seats. And I know, were they going for 7,000 shillings or something like that? Eh? I didn't even buy even one because I didn't have the money. So I didn't. Gong Road, I cannot say I built. But this one, I am going to build. I've been building and I'm going to build. And I want the future generations to come and have a place to worship. Have a place to worship. Just the way we have enjoyed and utilized Gong Road. And we were not there, some of us, when Gong Road was being built. Even those of you who are saying you have not built NMC, most of you didn't build the small one. I know some of you may have built. Most of you did not build the small one. And yet that is where we grew up, isn't it? That generation gave themselves to build that sanctuary. They gave themselves. I see families coming together here. In verse 3, we learn of sons of Hassenah. Sons came together. Sons of one father came together. And they put up a portion. Sons. That's a family coming together. And saying we are going to put up a session. In verse 4, a very funny character here. Very funny characters. Meshulam, son of Berechiah, son of Meshezabel. Let me tell you why this one is critical. Meshulam, his son, had married the daughter of Tobias. Now, if you listen to the drama, you know that Tobias was viciously opposed to the building of the wall. Now, Tobias and Meshulam, they were in-laws. Now, in my community, we say that if you want to hunt a leopard that is killing your goats, you call your in-law. You call the person you have given his sons, your daughter is something like that. You call your in-laws to go and hunt the leopard. But here you have in-laws who are viciously opposed to each other. And what God wants us to learn here is that despite some family tensions, despite some family members being convicted this way and others being convicted this way, Those who were convicted for building, they participated. I don't know where that left Meshullam and Tobiah, his son and their daughter. I don't know where it left them after the war was complete or as the war was going on. I don't know that they were still visiting one another. I don't know whether they were still calling one another. I don't know whether they were still eating together. But you had Tobias viciously opposed to the building and Meshullam building or participating in the building. And yet, Meshullam's daughter was married to Tobias' son. You know, there are some people who grew cold feet. We learn in verse 5 that the men of Tekoa built quite a portion, but their nobles could not. Now, Tekoa neighbored the region controlled by Geshem, one of the person who was also viciously opposed to the building of this wall. And it is possible that the nobles feared. But still, those who were convicted from Tekoa, the men of Tekoa, came up and built this place. Verse 6 tells us of Joiada, and Meshullam built a section. Now, in the building of this wall, you will realize that some individuals are building alone because they can afford. Others have to pull resources together. And in verse 6, you have a situation where neither Joiada nor Meshullam would have been able to put up a section together. And I'm hoping that as we continue building this building of ours, that we shall have partnerships. That I'll be able to go and tell someone, come, I want to put up 10 widows, but I can only afford 7. Help me to get 3, because I want to do 10. I want to put a gate, but the cost of a gate is so high. I want you to help me to put up a gate. Verse 7 talks of men from Gibeon, men from Mizpah, and Meronoth, areas controlled by the governor of Trans-Euphrates. These are neighbors. These are not people of Jerusalem. These are people who are living outside of Jerusalem. Now, one of the most interesting things about how God funds his work is that he doesn't only use the people who are direct beneficiaries. He also uses their friends. He also uses their neighbors. And so if today is your first day to visit us, and you're not even intending to visit us again, you can still participate in the building. Because by visiting us, you're our neighbor, you're our friend. You know, these people, they are not residents of Jerusalem. They are from another county. They were under a different governor. But they came because they realized that this is a project of God. This is a project of people of God. In verse 10, Jedaiah and Hattush, opposite their house, there are some people who will be driven by their own personal interest. What concerns me the most? Like I know Audrey would love to see a very good stage. You know, like today she's the one who has hired this. Let's clap for her. She has used this because she loves stages when men are singing. So she hired this with her own money. And I know even when we are talking with the technical team, she really pushes for a wonderful stage. She pushes. So there are some people who will be, you know, I love this. I would love to have a stage, a good stage. You know? There are people who just love nice toilets. You know, nice toilets. It's very true. I went somewhere with another man and he was telling me, for me, wherever I go, the first thing I do when I reach where I'm going is to go to the bathroom. I see what kind of bathrooms they have so that I know whether I'm going to take fluids or not. If they don't have nice ones, I will not take water. So different kind of interests. And you see those people who are afraid that maybe the areas in front of their houses, and there are quite a number mentioned in this book. Shalom, with the help of his daughters. Again, there's a family coming together. Most of the people mentioned here are sons, son of so-and-so, son of so-and-so. Shalom was a ruler of a district, and he built a certain section with his daughters. He recruited his daughters. And I'm glad that when we came for the dinner, I saw families, entire families coming together. Entire families coming together for the dinner. May God bless you. But that is how God funds his work. That's how God funds his work. We'll not be able to go through all the people here, but just see another one here. Verse 18, Baruch repaired from the angle to the entrance of the house of Eliashib. But now, what amazed me about Baruch is the fact that he zealously, with a lot of zealous, a lot of passion, he really wanted it. You know, he really wanted it. A lot of passion. A lot of passion. Shemaiah, verse 22. Shemaiah, the guard. You know, just underline that. Underline verse 22. Shemaiah was a guard in one of the gates. And he contributed. And his contribution is listed here. God wanted us in future generations to know that Shemaiah, the guard, not the accountant, not Shemaiah, the business person, not Shemaiah, the security guard in this and this gate, contributed. And he's among of those who are saying later on, I built that wall. And then came the goldsmith and merchants. You know, goldsmiths have money. I heard of one who was conned 100 billion shillings. And I'm wondering, by the time you are being conned 100 billion shillings, how much do you have? You know? Kwani, how much do you have? 100 billion. But even Kenyans, we have to learn not to steal. We have to learn to do genuine business. You know, it is bad to hear that somebody from Dubai has been conned 100 billion by a Kenyan. I think we should be reading, they have been conned by South Africans, or, you know, let's learn to do genuine business. So that if you are an honest goldsmith, you have genuine gold, which you are selling, you know, not conmanship. But the thing is, the goldsmith and the merchants, later on even the perfume makers, these were business people. They came, and I think they are listed at the end, because perhaps people's resources had come to an end. And these goldsmiths and merchants came together and said, now we are going to finish this. Because they had been mentioned earlier. There were goldsmiths mentioned earlier. But at the end again, they are mentioned again. Because I think what happened, people's resources ran dry, and the goldsmith came in again and said, if this is what is still remaining, we are going to finish building the wall. And so they finished. They finished. It reminded me, when we are building, we had not even started building the Kwale Clinic. We just used to go for mission, and we'd come and we'd share from the pulpit and tell people in the church that, you know, these people really want a clinic. We really would want to build a clinic. We really would want to build a clinic. And after such a sharing one Sunday, I remember a young man who came to me as people were exiting. And he told me, Pastor, that clinic you have been talking about, I want to give you 1 million shillings. You know, I looked at this man and I wondered, where are you going to get 1 million shillings? Because knowing our church, he was not looking as if he has reached the age to make 1 million shillings to give. You know? But this man gave 800,000 shillings. He didn't give it at a go. But I think the next week he brought 200. After 1 month he brought 150. After another month he didn't reach 1 million. Unless there's some money he took to the accounts that I didn't get to know. But at least I have receipts up to date of 800,000 shillings. He was not among those, I would say, have the money. But he just told me, that clinic, you cannot always be going for missions. You come after the mission, you are saying the same thing you said in March, you are saying in November. Those people want a clinic. Those people want a clinic. But later on, after he gave the money, other people came. I remember people who gave 5,000 shillings, people who gave 2,000 shillings, people, the committee, I think, gave 5,000, I said about 555, every member of the committee. And that's how we built that clinic. It was not through the general tithe. Mr. Mange, you are the treasurer at that time. You are sure we didn't use the general tithe of the church. People gave as they felt led by the Lord. And today, many people, that clinic is treating over 1,000 people every month. Every month. There are days that Janet is there until 8 p.m. just treating people. Because the people of God gave and they took portions of that building. Looking at this chapter 3 again, one thing also realize is that people do not build an equal length of the wall. God is not egalitarian. You know? Some people just put up a gate. Some people did a very small portion. There are some guys you are told they put up a certain section, a certain gate, and then they put up to 100 cubits of the wall. Because they had the resources. God's work is achieved when people come together and according to their means, decide we are going to give or to take up this work according to the way God has given us. You know, I'm saying this because the work before us is a lot. The mother church has been very gracious. Since we came, they have been paying the loan, and some are here from the mother church. They have been paying the loan. We have not reached a level where we can pay the loan. But this building, I think we can put it on our own without the mother church. What do you think? I think we can put it on our own. Since we have divided, broken it down, I think what we should do as we finish, just look at that BQ and decide, you know what? I'll give 2 widows. I don't know we have been giving. I'll give 2 doors. Those 700 bags of cement, I can give 5. I can give 100. That foundation, I can do half. That roof, I can. That's how God's work is done. Because this generation has to take care of the next generation. Those youth who led us in such a beautiful service here last Sunday, we need to prepare a place for them, a platform for them. The way we were prepared for in Gong Road. We need to give the youth along Lower Kabete Road a platform, a place where they can also call our ministry center. The way when you go to Gong Road, we know this is the new ministry center. We need to put up, I don't know whether we should call it Lower Kabete Ministry Center, or the Great Ministry Center, or the Lakeview Ministry Center, or West Team Ministry Center. We can even start coming up with those names. Because it will be something great, and you can see it is more beautiful, of course, than the mother. I think that you cannot compare. This is something very beautiful. We will have to, I think God is going to help us. So I would like us to pray. And do we have the forms? Okay. There are some forms there. If you'd want to say, I'll give 10 widows or whatever I would want to give, there are some forms you can just commit. They're there, Mutia? Okay. There are some forms, Mutia assures me. There are some forms. You can look at the BQs and say, you know what? In the next 1 year, I will give 100 bags of cement. In the next 3 months, I will give 2 widows. In the next 1 month. In my next salary check, I will do 1 wash basin. Tanin, even that one you can be able to do. A wash basin you can be able to do. Etc., etc. Because it is broken to pieces, and we want to break limits by breaking this building to pieces that are manageable, that we can be able to do. And whether you are visiting, whether you are regular, whether you can participate in this. You can participate in this, whether with your sons, with your daughters. When you read this chapter, and I really I want us in this one to be like the Bereans we read in the book of Acts, who are more noble than the Thessalonians, because they listened to Paul, and when they went home, they read the scriptures to see whether what Paul was saying was true. I want you, because I know you have not read this chapter before, because of the many names, I want you to go and sit down and read and see the kind of people. And where there are some cross-references, cross-reference, so that you see that Meshulam had given his daughter to Tobias